Hello Booktube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm doing my video in the car because my daughter has dropped her naps, as I mentioned in my last video, and so now I'm just having to film as and when I can because evenings are very difficult because she's having nightmares. So we are currently at her dance class and I'm sitting in my car and I've bought my books and I'm going to do it because I'm desperate to make sure I keep at least my Friday videos coming up. This week for my shout out I want to mention Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing. I really love her channel. Oh, I love her lilting Irish accent. She probably gets that all the time. I love the books that she talks about, and yeah, I just really love her channel and I definitely think more people need to subscribe to her, so go and check her out. The links are all below. So the first book that I read this week was a book on my Kindle that I was lucky enough to get from NetGalley. So full disclosure, this was a book that I got free from the publisher on my Kindle. It is called Final Protocol by J.C. Daniels. This is a really short book. I don't believe it's a novella or a short story. I think it is meant to be a novel, but it is only a couple of 100 pages long. The story is about Silence, and she is an assassin. She's got a chip in her brain which is like a kill switch, which the man that sort of sends her on missions can choose to kill her at any time. He uses her, there's triggers here for rape, and he sends her on missions for him as an assassin, otherwise he's going to kill her. She doesn't remember anything about her past, but she's sent on this one final mission and it sort of promises to reveal more about what's happened in her past. And we follow it along. It was short, it was fun, it was action packed. I just felt that there needed to be a little bit more world building for me. And I felt that there was plenty of room really, and plenty of the story that they could have made it into a longer novel, and I wish there had been more. So I enjoyed it, but I only gave this one 3 stars. The next read was a buddy read with Tanya at List Obsessed Reader, and we read The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter together. This is a selection of Angela Carter's short stories, and a lot of people I remember read this in 6th form for their English exams, and I wasn't one of those people, so I'd always wanted to pick it up. So when Tanya said she did too, I was really excited to read it together. If you read the introduction into this story, it says that it's not retellings, it's sort of reinventions. And I have to disagree really with that. The first story I really enjoyed. These are all short stories. They're all, in my opinion, retellings of famous fairy tales like Bluebeard or Beauty and the Beast or Puss in Boots. And this particular, well, my favourite, The Bloody Chamber, is the namesake story, and this is, in my opinion, a retelling of Bluebeard, which was probably my favourite story out of all of them. Some of them I just felt really were just literally the same story, especially The Beauty and the Beast. So although Angela Carter's writing is sublime, I love her writing, it's very mystical, magical, whimsical, she writes really evocatively. I just didn't feel like these particular stories packed a punch. I am yet to find a short story collection which is my favourite. So I enjoyed this, but I gave it 3 stars, and I think both me and Tanya were on the same wavelength when we were discussing this, but check out her video when she's talking about it to find out more about what her thoughts were. The next book I read was a library book, and I just couldn't hold myself back, and that was Uprooted by Naomi Novak. This has been around Booktube a lot recently. Everyone seems to be reading it, and I wanted to get in there before the hype got just too much for me, because I've been hearing rave reviews, and I'm pleased to say that it is just as good as the hype. I gave this one 5 stars. It is well on the way to becoming one of my favourite books of the year. It was just brilliant. It has a fairy tale-esque story to it. It's full of great plot and characters and world building. There really isn't anything here that it is lacking. It's a story of Agnieszka. She lives in a village which is near a wood, and this wood is known to be dark and magical, and people who go into the wood do not come out, or if they do, they come out different and end up dying or killing themselves and come out sort of ruined. So nobody goes near the forest. Sometimes magical beings come out and grab people, so these villages are always careful. And there is a tower, which you can see on the front cover of this one, near the village, a white tower in which the dragon, who isn't a real dragon but he's a magician, he keeps watch over the woods and helps the people and keeps the woods in check and stops it from spreading. Now every 10 years this dragon comes down to one of the villages and he takes one of the girls who is 11, I think it is, 10 or 11, I think it's 11, and so the girls that turn 11 within that year are all brought together and he picks one, and it's well known amongst the villagers that he picks the prettiest, the best, the most intellectual, the one that's got something about her, and he takes her to his castle for 10 years and then they're released with a dowry. And often they come back, they don't stay for long, and they end up moving away and going to university and making something of themselves, and they don't just tend to stay in the village, and they never talk about what's happened, but it's thought of in the village that perhaps he's using them as concubines or slaves or servants, but it's not really known. However, when this story starts, Agnieszka is going to be within these villagers that gets picked, but it's well thought of that her best friend Cassia is going to be the one that's chosen because she's beautiful, she's perfect, she's brave, she's wonderful. However, it's not Cassia that's picked, it's Agnieszka, and this is where the story starts. And there's politics, there's intrigue, there's war, it's just brilliant, and I really pick it up. If you don't want to buy it because it's still in hardcover, get it from your library. It's just well worth a read. I read it in a couple of days and I just couldn't put it down. It was such a good story. The next book I picked up was The Sculptor by McCloud. This is a graphic novel. I've had it for a while. It's beautiful artwork and I just hadn't picked it up. I hadn't been in the mood for graphic novels for a while, but I picked it up this week and I'm so pleased I did. I've been so lucky this week. Uprooted was a 5 stars and this was a definite 5 stars. I've not read a graphic novel in a long time that has moved me and has made me feel things and has really touched me, and this was a brilliant example of a well done graphic novel. It's full of pain and anguish. It touches on love and mental illness and spending the time you have doing things and making your mark and art, and it's just brilliant. The story is about David, and he is a sculptor. He's always wanted to be a sculptor. He has a passionate view of his work, but he's had a moment of success years before and that has diminished, and now he is struggling to make ends meet. He makes a deal with death that he can have 200 more days on Earth, and in those 200 days he can mould and sculpt anything he wants with his hands, anything he can imagine, and this follows his journey of those 200 days and what happens, and it's just perfect. I really implore you and urge you to give this book a go. I really enjoyed it. Next up was a book that I read on my Kindle app and that was a buddy read with a couple of lovely ladies on. We did it via email, and that was Immortal Rules by Julie Kagawa. I had every intention of reading the whole trilogy of this. I've wanted to read it for ages. It's a YA vampire paranormal type story, but it just fell a little bit flat, and I don't know if that's because I'd read 2 such brilliant stories, or whether I read a lot of, I have in my time read quite a lot of vampire fiction and it just didn't hold up. I'm not sure. I gave it 3 stars. It was okay, but it's not my favourite vampire story I've ever read. The story is about Ali. She lives in the fringe of a walled city. This is a world where a virus has plagued, and you always had vampires, but they've come out of hiding, and now there is vampires living in the sort of top of the city, and there is humans who have to get marked to give blood once a month for the vampires, and if you're not marked and you don't choose to do that, then you don't get given any food or any help, and you are the lowest of the low, and they are the people in the fringe, which Ali is, so she has to scrounge and scavenge and thieve for food. And she lives there. There are these sort of zombie-esque vampire types that have caught this virus that live outside the walls. And one day Ali is out scavenging for food and she gets attacked and she gets saved by a vampire and turned into a vampire herself. And this is really where we go with the story and we follow what happens. I enjoyed it. I just thought the story was lacking in certain areas, and yeah, it was okay but not great, so I gave this one 3 stars. So that's the books that I've read this week. On to the books that I'm planning on reading next week. I'm currently reading Way Down Dark by JP Smythe. I got this from the publisher, so full disclosure, this will be when I finish this I will be reviewing it in my weekly roundup, so thank you to them for sending this to me. This was via Bookbridger and I'm really enjoying it so far, but I've only read the first chapter, so we'll have to wait and see what my verdict is on this one. I'm doing a buddy read this week with a lovely Laura from Booknomming, and we are going to be reading The Longest Ride by Nicholas Sparks. So I can't wait to read this because I really want to get to this so that I can then watch the film. I'm also doing a buddy read with the lovely Victoria Harris from the channel with the same name, and we are reading The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I'm excited to get to this one finally. It is a massive book, so fingers crossed I can get through it. And then finally, if I have time, fingers crossed I have time, I desperately want to read it, I will be reading Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. I can't wait to read this book and see if it meets my expectations. I've heard a few different things flying around about this book, but I'm going to try and avoid as many reviews as I can until I've had a chance to read it, but hopefully I will get to it this week. But obviously my buddy reads take priority. So that was my week in reading, what I've read, what I'm looking to read, and also definitely check out Aoife at Fred Weasley Died Laughing. I apologise for the quality of this video because I am in the car. Hopefully I'll get this sort of sorted, but I am going to Yalk on Saturday, or as you're watching this, tomorrow, so I didn't have time to film over the weekend, so I wanted to make sure I had something up on Friday. So apologies again for the setting, but hopefully next week will be a bit easier, we'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now, Booktube.